Feel my power. Alice, I think she was the brain of our double, that's for sure, and I was the power.
No, I don't think that it makes it easier. Every single match is so.
Picture a silent European town mid-spring, and suddenly it doesn't feel silent anymore. Rails rolling into lenses filled tighter than usual. Cloths being pressed the night before. Group talks humming in Tagalog at 2 o'clock in the morning. And at the heart of all of it, a 20-year-old from the Philippines who just found a Filipino grocery shop in Austria and couldn't hide her excitement about it. That's where the drama begins. Not with a prize, not with a number. With a girl sharing an Instagram story titled, "Ooh, Philippines from a little shop in Linz," smiling like she just found buried treasure. And in a way, she had, because that second, that tiny, unwritten, completely natural second, tells you everything you need to know about why Alex has become something far larger than a tennis player. She landed in Linz for the Upper Austria Ladies Open, placed 45th in the world. Fresh from a hard-court run where she reached the round of 16 at both Indian Wells and Miami, which is truly incredible for someone her age. Clay was fresh territory at this grade. She ruled on it as a junior, but the WTA Tour is a different beast entirely, and nobody knew quite what to hope for from her on a ground she hadn't proven herself on professionally. What nobody was calling, or at least nobody in the traditional tennis circles, was what happened before she even struck a single ball. The Philippine embassy in Austria started gathering, not softly, not subtly, publicly, encouraging the roughly 30,000 Filipinos living across the country to make the trip to Linz. Vienna is only about an hour and a half away by rail. And suddenly that felt like nothing. People were buying passes, booking rails, coordinating with friends and family. A people that rarely had reason to descend on a mid-sized Austrian town in the middle of a weekday suddenly had the best reason in the world. One of their own was fighting. And not just fighting, she was being handed center court for every single one of her matches. Let that rest in for a second. The tournament leader, Sandra Reichel, a former professional player who has spent decades in and around this sport, looked at the situation and made a choice that other leaders rarely make. She didn't put Alex on an outer court for the early rounds the way standard practice dictates. She didn't stall. She put her on the main stage, 3,000 seats for every match, because she understood something the rankings couldn't tell her. She told ABS-CBN Sports in an interview just days before the tournament began that Alex is unbelievable, not promising, not exciting, unbelievable. That word choice matters. Reichel has seen countless players walk through tournament gates over the years. She knows what a good player looks like, and she knows what a phenomenon looks like, and she was not conflating the two. She was making a deliberate statement, and the crowd that showed up proved her right. Imagine what it must feel like to be any other player in that list. You've prepared for weeks. You've traveled to Austria. You're ready for a professional feeling. Respectful applause. A few hundred dedicated fans spread across the seats. Instead, you walk out and hear thousands of voices already mid-song, flags draped over railings, a wall of noise that has a very specific name in it. And that name is not yours. That's the reality Alex created simply by being herself. Now, here's where the drama gets genuinely interesting, because it doesn't exist in isolation. While all of this was unfolding in Linz, something very different was happening on the other side of the tennis conversation. Aryna Sabalenka has had one of the most logically dominant starts to a WTA season in recent memory. 23 wins, 1 loss coming into the spring. Multiple titles, the Sunshine Double, the #1 ranking by a gap so large that nobody is even in the conversation. By every objective tennis metric, she is the best player on the planet right now, and it isn't particularly close, and yet, fan videos from Indian Wells in March started moving online, showing sections of the stadium visibly empty during her games. Not a handful of empty seats, whole sections. Social media ran with it. Tennis forums spent days picking it apart, and drama channels on YouTube went further, reporting claims that fans were actively choosing to attend other games over hers, moving toward players who represented something they personally connected with. The reports haven't been confirmed by tournament officials, but the footage speaks for itself. The seats were empty, the energy was missing, and the contrast with what was happening in Linz became impossible to look away from. This is the tension at the heart of what's unfolding in women's tennis right now. The player with the best record and the player who fills the room are no longer automatically the same person. It used to be a given. It isn't anymore. And figuring out why that gap exists is actually more interesting than the gap itself. Alex is 20 years old. She grew up in the Philippines watching a sport that didn't really look like her, that didn't have many players who came from where she came from, who spoke the language she speaks, who ate the food she grew up eating, and now she's in Austria and she finds a Filipino grocery store and her first instinct is to share it, to bring her community into that small, joyful, mundane second. That's not a PR strategy. That's just who she is. And people feel the difference. When fans see a player winning and feel like they are winning with them, when success feels communal rather than individual, something shifts. It stops being spectatorship and starts being something closer to belonging. That's what's happening with the Filipino community around Alex's career. Over 100 million people in the Philippines. Millions more spread across Europe, the Middle East, North America, all over the world. When one of their own is on that court, it is not just a tennis match. It is a reminder that they exist, that they belong in spaces that have historically centered other kinds of people. The gathering in Linz is the most visible version of something that has been building quietly for a while now, and it's going to keep building. Her upcoming schedule runs through Stuttgart, Roland Garros, the full clay stretch into summer. Every tournament leader on that list is about to get a very clear demonstration of what it means to have Alex in your draw, but here's the thing that separates the real story from the hype. Alex is not a finished product. Miami made that clear. She got through the early rounds brilliantly, beating Lois Boisson and Magda Linette with real conviction. Then she ran into Karolina Muchova. The scoreline was 0-6-2-6. A complete dismantling. The kind of result that reminds you exactly how steep the climb still is between the top 50 and the true elite of this sport. A lot of players that age post something after a loss like that. A reflection, a thank you to the fans. Something that performs resilience without necessarily feeling it. Alex didn't post anything. She just moved on. Shifted to clay prep, flew to Austria, found a grocery store and smiled. That quiet is actually louder than any statement she could have made. It tells you she's not playing a character. She's not managing her image around the losses as carefully as the wins. She's just living her career, taking the lessons and showing up again. Sandra Reichel named her incredible before she'd won a single fight in Linz. 30,000 Filipinos gathered across Austria to be in the same town as her. The Philippine embassy issued public calls to back her. A player placed 45th got center court spots over higher seeds at a WTA 500 event on a ground she's never fought on at this grade. None of that occurred because of a prize. None of it occurred because of a rank. It occurred because over the course of her short career, Alex has made every win feel shared and every loss feel human. And people who have spent their whole lives looking for someone in this sport who looks and sounds and moves like them finally found her. The WTA has spent decades building its money model around a simple belief. Push the top-ranked stars, market the Grand Slam winners, assume the fans follow the scores. That model is being stress-tested right now in a way it hasn't been before. Because what's occurring in Linz isn't a one-off. It's not an oddity to be filed away and forgotten. It's a signal. The physics of fan attention are shifting, and the players who grasp that are the ones who will define what the next age of women's tennis looks like, not just in the ranks, but in the arenas. Alex doesn't seem to think about any of this deeply. That might actually be the whole point. She finds a Filipino grocery shop in Austria and posts about it because she's truly thrilled. She loses badly in Miami and goes silent because that's how she actually handles things. She shows up in Linz and her people show up with her, not because anyone planned a campaign, but because she gave them something real to show up for. The believers, the ones who were tracking her before the tennis media caught up, before the mainstream noticed, they grasped this before any of it was clear. They saw a player who wasn't acting relatable but actually being it, and now the world is watching too. What happens at Roland Garros is going to be worth paying very close attention to. If Linz is the warm-up, and given everything that just occurred, it very much feels like a warm-up, then the clay swing ahead of her could be the second this story stops being a tennis story and becomes something larger. So here's the real question. Not how far does she go in the ranks. Not whether she wins a title this spring, but this. When you buy a ticket to a match, what are you actually buying? Are you buying the best tennis? Are you buying the highest seed? Or are you buying the feeling that someone out there on that court is playing for something you personally recognize, something that belongs to you too? Because if it's the last one, then Alex's army isn't just growing. It's rewriting what this sport looks like from the inside out. Drop your guess in the comments. How far does she go this clay season? And if you've been following her from the beginning, if you called this before anyone else did, say it now because you were right and the rest of the world is just catching.